All right, perfect. I think we're being recorded right now, so that's excellent. Hey, Denise,
Hi, Paul.
how's it going?
Great. How about you?
Excellent, thanks. Thank you for spending some time with us.
Thanks for asking me.
No problem. I just want to give you some context as to what we're doing today and what the goal is. We're presenting being person-centered to a group of realtors, master ASAs in particular. They may be ASAs as well. But the whole idea that I wanted to meet with you today was to get your take, especially in the early beginnings of when we first met in developing Pivotal, your take on what it was to be person-centered or offering person-centered care. I was always fascinated with this from the first day that we met, and from that point forward, it's really challenged me in the way I look at things and deal with people. And I think for a lot of the agents that are going to be watching this, I think right now they offer a lot of services under the person-centered idea, but I think perhaps they don't even realize that that's what they're actually doing. And once I discovered being person-centered, it really kind of framed things for me. So I want to be able to have that conversation with you today so that we can share with them what this actually means and where it came from. Okay.
Awesome.
So let me ask you right off the bat. So what's your take on what it means to be person-centered or offered person-centered care?
I think the thing that after 42 years of being in long-term care and dabbling with communities and healthcare and everything else, I can sum it up into one sentence, and that is, if you do not know me, you cannot care for me. And I think that goes with everything in our life. It just doesn't mean healthcare. It means me as a family. It means me as an individual. It means me as a community organization. It's in pretty much everything we do. So I lived through that philosophy, and that philosophy started way back in 2004 for me. And I've just continued to build on what people-centered care is all about.
Yeah, it was interesting when, if you recall, that first day that we met up and we were talking and how that conversation developed. And you were explaining person-centered care to me. And at that point, I had already taken care of my dad. And I think I was about to take care of my father-in-law, who was ill with cancer. And that whole person-centered thing, it literally hit me at the side of the head. And I thought, wow, there's so much more to dealing with people than just selling them, forcing them, categorizing them even. And it's that lack of identity that those individuals have. And so it was profound for me when you explained all of that. And so I'm anxious to share more about what this is and how we as salespeople and consultants can become person-centered in what we offer. Right?
Absolutely.
So your single line of, if you don't know me, you can't care for me. If we think about that, it's such a basic line or a basic sentence, but it means so much.
It encapsulates everything right. From your social to your physical to your emotional to your spiritual, that holistic view of that person. But it also, we have to engage the other person as well too, because lots of times we want to do what's best for them versus what they want, right? So it really teaches us, particularly that sentence, it says it all. What does that individual want? And today, after how many years, and particularly looking in long-term care, we've advanced so much that people have other choices now that they didn't 20 years ago. And how do we deal with that, right? How do we learn about that? How do we accept that, right? So it's huge.
Really, really interesting. I just want to advance the slide here because I wrote down, or I got a description of being person-centered or person-centered care. This was taken from the Health Innovations Network out of the UK. And basically the way they describe it, now remember they're coming from the healthcare side of things, right? Person-centered care is a way of thinking and doing things that sees the people using health and social services as equal partners in planning, equal
So
partners. I mean, when I look at that, or as you're describing that, you're putting the patient or the client on an even playing field as the professional delivering the service.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right?
And when you look at that, equal partners, and you're looking at your own care, you're looking at your healthcare plan, right? And what does that entail? It's the nurses coming to you, it's the doctors, it's just whoever else that you have as far as your healthcare professionals. And it's them coming to the table with you to develop what you want, not what they want. Sure, they're going to tell you the worst case scenarios, but at the end of the day, they still need to give you that choice.
Right. And it's that involving you in that choice. Right?
Exactly. And that's the other piece, is involving you, not talking around you, but talking with you. Yeah.
Right. So just continuing on that. So part of planning, developing, and monitoring care to make sure it meets their needs. This means putting people and their families at the center of decisions and seeing them as experts, working alongside professionals to get the best outcome.
Absolutely.
And again, those early conversations that you and I had before creating Pivotal, it was a surprise to me that, as individuals, patients, we're not involved in that process. And who's the real professional about yourself other than yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah. We might know that there's a better way, but for them that might not be that better way. That they might have a more comfortable thing that works for them versus how we think it should be, right? And there's more that comes into that people-centered care when it comes to the Always Evolving Experience. And the Health Innovation Network actually took this from the Pillar Institute, which is working on that whole piece. And they've done a phenomenal job really identifying even further by identifying the Always Evolving Experiences. Mm-hmm. And it's become even farther from that to developing ourselves with emotional intelligence, motivational interviewing techniques. And they're very simple courses that have been put together, and you can do them pretty much anywhere, that really help you to figure that out. And how can you understand yourself to be able to understand others more better, right? And
that I think that was key as well, is being able to understand yourself so that you can understand others.
Absolutely.
Right? So even though we're professionals and we know what's best for you, the client, maybe we're wishing more for you than you want for yourself.
Absolutely.
Or maybe the results, the tactical piece of what we deliver is still there, but it has to be massaged or manipulated so that it's better suited for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely.
So for me, when you were sharing all of this, and I was thinking back, obviously emotionally, to when I was dealing with my father, and the difference as I began to learn all of this, and through the masters. When I was dealing with my father-in-law going through his situation, it was a completely different experience. Not only for myself, but as the result for them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I think it's a very powerful way of working, dealing, and communicating with people. Absolutely. I just wanted to pull a few things here. What it might be like for the individual receiving services or healthcare in that case. And we talked about this, right? No decision about me without me.
Exactly.
Again, a real simple line, but it means a whole lot, right?
Yeah. Even our dementia residents, if they have that slight little bit, we have them involved in everything. You know what I mean? Because it makes them feel like they're still part of it. Because they're already having a hard enough time. Why are we making it harder for them?
Right.
At least we can keep them engaged. Yeah.
I remember an example you gave me. You were working long-term care, and you were with a patient or a resident in the room with them, but you heard the other nurses outside in the hallway talking about that person and not as a person.
Exactly. Yes.
And I thought, wow, if I was sitting there listening to that conversation outside, like on the other side of the wall, there's no humanity to that. There
isn't. No.
There's no connection there. Right.
Yeah. And that's where we've lost that, and that's where that whole emotional intelligence piece comes into play, is that psychosocial piece, right? We're so missing that. And again, what's that specific thing about people-centered care? We don't know the resident.
Right.
We're not letting ourselves know that resident. Exactly. Yeah.
Another thing that a resident or a patient client feeling is, I'm scared, I'm frightened, nervous, intimidated, I'm confused. Right? You can't deliver
all the time.
you can't deliver something without addressing those concerns for that individual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So again,
you're not going to get the best results.
How can you treat me if you don't know me?
Yep. Yep. Goes right down to that.
Yeah. Can it be done in a way that doesn't hurt me? Emotionally, physically, logically, right? Whatever.
Who wants pain?
Who wants pain in any form, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell me in a way that I can understand? Right.
That's the big one. That is the big one. Is we understand it, but how we articulate that to them so that they understand it by removing the fear and the nervousness and intimidation, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. Putting them at ease and including them in that process, right?
Yeah.
And for me, that goes back to being intimidated. If you, as the receiver of the care or the service or whatever it is, if you're meant to feel or made to feel inferior because you're not the professional, is that really the right way to deal with people? No.
Right? Because you kind of succumb to the fact that they may know more than you versus what you're really feeling inside.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Because you don't want to create waves. You don't want to make any problems, right? You don't want to have any resistance. You want to have trust, right? Well, what about the trust that they need to feel from us too? It has to be a two-way street.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you trust somebody, then you trust them. Right?
Oh, and the possibilities are unlimited. Like,
right. Another one is treating a person, not as an illness.
Exactly. Always labeling, like, oh, well, she's got this, or he's got that. Why can't, or somebody's autistic. Why can't we say, like, and that's a big for me, because, I mean, for those individuals, they're smart. It doesn't mean that they're dumb. They're actually more smarter than me. You know? It's just they have a different way of communicating it. And I don't think it's something that we should label. And we do very terrible in our society to label people. And so, hence, again, the division, we're divided. There's not that togetherness by doing that, right?
Right. Yeah. It's not cohesive or inclusive. It's more segregated. Yeah. Our silos. Yeah, exactly. Have you ever considered how I feel about it? Right? Have you taken the time to actually ask me what I feel about this situation? Right?
Yeah.
Can you refer me? Can you refer to me by my name rather than a case number?
Oh.
Right?
Absolutely. It's like, what?
I've even heard it. Where nurses are saying, you know, you need to go see patient in room 10.
Exactly.
Right? Oh, so I'm patient room 10 is what I am. It's not understanding who I am as a person, right? As opposed to them saying, oh, you need to go see Paul in room 10. You're
just a number.
Just a number.
You're a tick mark on the wall, on the blackboard, or the whiteboard.
Or the whiteboard, exactly. What are all the options available to me? Are you actually giving me all my options as a professional?
Sometimes they don't, because it depends, and I hate to say this, but it depends on where you are in life, in your journey in life, how old you are, what's it looking like, what's your diagnosis and prognosis. Is it looking pretty slim? If that's the case, then we're not going to give you many options, which I can describe a little later on once we move forward.
Yeah. Okay. And then the last one is, I would be more open to the idea if. So if I, as a patient, were receiving all this information or news or treatment, to be able to say, listen, if you did it this way or presented it to me this way, or allowed me to understand it in a certain way, I'd be more open to the idea of doing that. Right?
Lots of times, if they think it's their decision too, they're like, okay, well, what else can we do?
Right. So instead of forcing the decision or not including them in that decision, if you can get them to feel like that they're inclusive of that decision, they're going to be more open to the fact of moving forward with something. Right?
Absolutely.
And that's definitely something that we deal with in our industry, dealing with older adults in that transition process, because there's reluctancy, there's fear, there's all kinds of emotional roadblocks in the way. But if you can get them to understand and trust you and come up with the idea to move forward, you're in.
Absolutely. And you'll know that if you can do that very quickly too, in
Yep.
your first dealings with an individual, the buy-in is so much better. Like if you're
Right.
so equipped with these skill sets prior to that, you're going to get a win-win right off the bat.
Right. Right. I don't want to talk about too much about this slide, some information in here, but maybe you can briefly talk about the always events or emotional intelligence in particular. I think the emotional intelligence is another key factor.
The emotional intelligence piece, so I'm recently doing a course on that. And then when I was doing my PhD, it was really hard for my professors because they hadn't had somebody like myself who knew the end answer before. So a research student is supposed to look for what's wrong. Well, I already know what's wrong in long-term care because I've been in it, and I've been in it at so many various levels. And I've also been able to look at the whole political system and how can we help with long-term care, as well as the academic piece and then being hands-on. So when I look at this I love this model because it drives me back to Maslow's hierarchy of need. And that is a very basic. And if we are not able to, for an individual, if we're not able to make them feel safe and secure and belonging and feed them and give them love and emotional support and all of this, what they're saying, they're never going to feel like a self-actualized individual where they feel complete. Mm-hmm. So the emotional intelligence piece, what I'm finding and understanding a lot more, because I've kind of looked into this course that I'm taking and I'm almost done it, is that I so understand myself better. I'm understanding myself better. I'm understanding how I understand my team better and how I'm understanding residents better. Before you could ask me and I wasn't quite sure how to tell you what that was, but now I know from the skill sets that I'm learning from that I had various skill sets. So now I want to take those skill sets and even build on it more so, and hopefully those skill sets will help me to complete the book that I want to write, which is based on, if you do not know me, you cannot care for me. The other thing that I find is another one as well that is very, very important when you're wanting to look for that person's always event and experience is knowing what questions to ask. And motivational interviewing techniques is another great little course that you can take. There's a lot on it, and it really helps you to, when you come to a roadblock with finding out with that resident, because one, they may not understand the question. Two, they may be shy and don't want to tell you what they want. Three, they're always scared to tell you, especially as a resident, they don't want to cut off the hand that feeds them. Yeah. So you can really use this as a great tool to find out what is really deep inside them. What is it that's important to them? So I really recommend those along with the people-centered care approach, because that really helps you understand the whole people care approach a lot better.
So just so I can sum up emotional intelligence, is that the recognition as a professional, recognizing all of this prior to engaging the person?
It totally helps to understand yourself, and it helps you to understand if somebody is more introverted or extroverted. So when you come up against different individuals, sometimes they're resistant to talk to you, or sometimes they're apprehensive to talk to you because they're not trusting. So between the social intelligence and being able to use these interviewing techniques, it really helps you to go, okay, well, just because I have this, they might not. So I have to understand what's missing for them so that I can help identify that. And when you go through that course, it'll show you, for instance, for myself, in one area, I scored 99%. Yeah, that might be really good, but that might not be very good for the person who scored 56%. I might intimidate them, right? And they might think that they can't approach me because wow, she really gets me. Oh my goodness, she see right through me, right? Where I have to learn to bring it down a notch so that I am approachable, so that they can feel that for me, that they can trust me, and then I can start to use my skill sets to bring that out to them too, so that they can actually be that person that they want, or they can help me to identify what they really need. And do that collectively. Yeah.
Right. So as a professional, it's the ability to recognize that and move in that direction to assist that user and patient being open and sharing so that you can develop your plan in working with them. Yeah.
And helping them grow the person too. With confidence.
It's all about empowering. I mean, that's an empowering way to be a professional working with somebody, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to be here too long because we do. It's going to be part of another presentation. But I want you to share the story of Bill, which will sum up being person-centered and the challenges that you and Bill had. Yes, that's Denise in the picture there. That you and Bill had in the way society or the institution that you were working at kind of cast him aside and lost the human aspect or that person piece, and how you were able to bring that back. So if you want to share that story, Bill, that would be great.
Oh, cool. This was a pivotal turning point in my life. And the story of Bill goes back to 2001. I'm going in October of 2001. And when I had started in that home, I was hired as a dietary rehab manager with 7 hours to build a rehab unit. I didn't know at that time that they had no rehab going on. They had some restorative care going on, which was a personal support worker that was doing it. She was doing the best she could with the resources she had. But at that time, what would happen is you go into long-term care and you see all these individuals sitting in wheelchairs. And you go, wow, why are all these people just sitting in wheelchairs? So my role was to try to develop this rehabilitation unit for this home, putting policies and everything else. Little did I know that I was doing a lot of hands-on, which was absolutely awesome, because that's actually where I learned about people-centered care. And it was because of this man's courageous battle to teach this to the home as well, too. Because the home was not viewed as a good home. There was a retirement section that was pretty much ready to close. I thought, wow, why don't we use it for rehabilitation and having people come there for post-op, surgeries, whether that be post-op hip and knee surgery, whether it be stroke strategy. Bill came to us. He came to us palliative care. He was 84 years old. A very, very strong, determined man. Very cognitive. He knew what he wanted. He was a farmer, so he was. He had lots of pride and integrity, which I don't blame him. I think the majority of us do. And at the time, physiotherapy was conducted through CCAC, which is Community Care Access Centers, and they would come in and they would prioritize them. And I think we mentioned earlier about, what do you get? What's your options? Well, for Bill, because he was palliative care and so bad off, he wasn't walking prior to this picture. They never thought he'd walk again. They marked him as priority 5. And for this being new to me, I looked at his therapist, and Bill was in the room as well. And I said, well, what does that mean? Being a kinesiologist, I know how important it was, particularly because he just had surgery on his leg that he would need to move every day. Bill wasn't able, he wasn't able to bear any weight on that leg at all. So I'm thinking, wow, what kind of a challenge is this going to be? Because he also had frozen shoulders where he couldn't lift his arms up. He was very, very limited. So he said, well, Denise, that's 5 sessions. And I said, oh, great. Well, we're on the same page. Because I thought he meant 5 sessions a week, right? Because I thought a physiotherapist, okay, that's about right. And he said, no, that's 5 in total. And I said, 5 in total of what? Like, what do you mean? Like a month? 3 weeks? What does that look like? He goes, no, 5 sessions, that's it. Bill looked at me and he started to cry. And he said to me, he goes, Denise, he says, I don't want to feel shame anymore. I want to be able to walk on my own to the bathroom. Help me. And at that point, I thought, I knew what I was up against with the union. I knew there'd be pushback because they would have been thinking I was taking over their jobs. I was new. Who's this manager coming in thinking she can change this, and this about her home? There were so many issues. But if it wouldn't have been for this man showing us what we were supposed to be doing and what our real job was, and that if you do not know me, you cannot hear from me, he taught us what he needed. He taught us what he needed to be cared for the best. And within 5 months, he had made little goals. We had little goals throughout. I could only spend a little bit of time with him, but he carried out all these other exercises. He had my phone number in case he got stuck. He could call me anytime. And his first goal was to be able to walk down the hallway. And the hallway probably, I'm going to say about 30 feet, which was a big thing. Well, first was the bathroom, which he did that within a matter of a couple of weeks. We were able to get him to do that in 2 weeks. And I would say within 6 weeks to 2 months, he walked the full length of the hall. And as he was walking down the hall, it was kind of funny because there was another resident sitting in one of the private rooms that she allowed to both of us. She said, hey, can I do that too? And she was sitting in her wheelchair. And I said to her, well, can you walk? She said, yeah, they put me in this darn thing since I got here, and I haven't walked since. All she needed was an assessment for the right walker so that she could walk again. Within the end of the week, we had a walker for her. She was like red light, green light. She was like steaming down the hallways. So that's how the residents were watching him, the families were watching him, the staff were watching him. So it got to the point where one big goal at the end was to be able, and he still was wearing this cast right from his hip all the way to his toes, still not able to bear weight on that foot either, that within that 5 to 6 months. So we had planned a big surprise for him. It was 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30 in the morning, and it was breakfast. And you couldn't see people in the dining room. You had to go around that hallway where we're coming into. And as he came into the hallway or into the dining room, there was all the residents, family members showed up, staff that weren't working showed up, and they applauded him. And this is him looking up at the very first second as we're walking into the hallway.
Yeah.
Our whole life changed. And he looked at me and he said, Denise, thank you. I no longer feel shamed anymore. And he so taught me why I went back to school as a mature student to do kinesiology, was to realize that there was so much that we could do outside of being the 200-yard race or the athlete in football or whatever, that there's such a need outside of that. So that's the goal. And internationally, nationally, and my book that I'm now working on is called The Story of Bill, Before the Memories Fade Away. So that is actually my thesis that I'm putting together, and hopefully my goal is within the next year to have that released, and talks a lot about people-centered care, emotional intelligence. The big thing I also find, and as a working frontline for 42 years, grassroots to being a CEO in some organizations, common themes are we have a culture of blame, shame, retrain, where people are afraid to care, unable to care, and put people's dignity at risk. And we need to change that culture and turn those words around to positive and do what this man did years ago and taught us. So.
And from that, I wrote, not at the cost of a resident, not at the cost of the resident.
Never at the cost of the resident.
Right. Let me describe that a corporation, an entity, a large body, an association, a governing body, whatever, shouldn't be doing what they do at the cost of a resident or at the cost of the people. It should be inclusive of the people, because it's because of the people that you're able to deliver what you deliver. Right?
And that's our humanitarianism. That's humanity, right?
Absolutely.
And our culture today. Yeah.
And I guess, again, that really sums up what person-centered means, is really bringing the humanity back into our lives, our professional lives, right? I would think that most professions or professionals look at what we do to gain financial gain or to gain money. But when you're dealing with people, if you want to make money, that's okay. I'm not stopping anybody from making money. I need to make money. We all do. But when you're working with, a vulnerable sector, people that are relying on you in a different way than just selling bubble gum, it's really, I feel that you'll be doing greater business when you're including those people as individuals, right?
And who doesn't want to, and who doesn't want to feel part of a good feel story at the end of the day?
Absolutely. And I would turn that around as well to the professionals themselves. How do you want to be treated?
Because one day we could be there, or we're going to be there.
Absolutely. One day, chances are you will be there, unless you drop quickly. But it's really not, looking at this even further, it's not even just seniors or vulnerable people. It's how you interact with other people.
Right? You can use those, you can transfer those skills. Everything you do in life